The NBA season officially begins tonight.
Tuesday, the Celtics begin.
Lamar Jackson sent a locked-in MVP message to the rest of the NFL.
The Chargers let one slip away on Monday Night Football against the Cardinals.
The Bucs take their biggest loss of the season, and
it's confirmed Brandon Aiyuk is done for the 2024 season.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The NBA season officially begins tonight.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
This is a really big game tonight, kicking off what I think everyone seems to agree is going to be a brutally hard season for any team battling in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I mean, like it's any team basically. I don't know, everybody except what, like Portland is gonna feel like they've got a shot.
No, Utah's gonna come around.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, I mean, like it just magnifies. It just magnifies every game. The West is going to be so brutal. I mean, like we can get into this maybe a little bit, but like just how compressed the win totals are going to be, and it feels like every game is ultimately going to matter for tiebreakers or whatever purpose when the season comes down to it.
It's funny, like last season, the Lakers won 47 games. I think with some better decisions, could have been a 50-win team, and you win 50 games, as you understand. There's a lot of optimism heading into your season. Like there's something psychologically different about a 5 in front of your win total as opposed to a 4. But the Lakers have these questions that center around a truly brand new coach in JJ Redick, and the Wolves have a truly new and different team, which is where we're going to begin. The Karl Anthony Towns trade, sending them the Knicks, took a lot of people by surprise. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo are now part of the Wolves. We're going to talk about what the new guys bring to the table in a bit, but just when you think about Cat's absence, like I know he's had ups and downs with Minnesota, but like looking through the all-time records for this franchise, Kevin Garnett is basically number 1 for everything, but Cat is number 2 in a lot, and KG is obviously the GOAT Wolf, but Karl Anthony Towns might be the GOAT runner-up. He's a big presence in franchise lore. From both a cultural and on-court perspective, what do you think it means for him to no longer be with this team?
That's a great way to phrase that, because I think like my immediate reaction from a basketball standpoint is the ceiling of this team is lower, and I've certainly analyzed this in a number of different ways over the last 2 weeks, and there's a world in which they win more games this year, absolutely, but I just think the most likely best case, or the ceiling of this team, is a little bit lower without Karl Anthony Towns, and that doesn't include some of the off-court stuff. And by all accounts, they handled this the right way, and you know, Cat is a great dude, and apparently Tim Connolly went and talked to Cat in person about 5 minutes before the news broke, like went and saw him at his place and like had the conversation, and Cat was, you know, did great stuff in the community even up until the day after he was traded. And like that cultural piece is interesting because clearly over the last couple of years there was a shift in who's the alpha on the court, and it became Anthony Edwards. And Cat did all the right things. He not only said all the right things, he did do all the right things on and off the court. There was never any sort of angst between Ant and Cat. And now that guy's gone, and you're bringing in somebody in Julius Randle who, like, he's not like known for having off the court issues or anything like that, but it's a bit of a different mentality than what Karl Anthony Towns has. And so there could be that shift. And I think there's the danger. I would put it almost on equal footing as you know, what happens on the court with the actual X's and O's piece of this. How does and I think it's related, honestly, that the Randle and Ant dynamic work on the court specifically, because you know, from a basketball standpoint, there's going to be less space. That's the obvious one, right? Like Randle and Ant both like to operate kind of in the middle of the floor, and what's that going to look like? Randle's nowhere near the shooter that Cat is, but then that spill over into the off the court, the overall mentality of the team, if the two who are supposed to be the two best players, or at least the two top offensive options, if those guys don't see eye to eye, and there is a learning curve there, it's very rare that a team that went to the conference finals, that was one of the last really 3 teams playing in the NBA last year, trades their second best player on the eve of training camp. You could say the same thing about the Knicks, a team that's a finals hopeful with the Knicks also trading their second best player on the eve of training camp. So I think both are legitimate concerns, I think is probably the right word. But I don't know that like functionally, like the team shouldn't be significantly worse. I don't think they're significantly better. It's just, can they work through some of these things? Is the culture that Tim Connolly and Chris Finch has instilled, is that strong enough to kind of get past any potential issues here? And that, that obviously remains to be seen. They only played one preseason game with Randall. He's still recovering from the shoulder surgery. So there's a lot that still has to be, kind of hashed out here in the coming weeks.
Yeah. And Randall has a potential player option that he can opt out of. So this could be thought of for him as a contract year. So he's got career concerns. He's got some of his own agenda, for lack of a better way of putting it, which doesn't necessarily mean he'll separate himself from the team. If, for what it's worth, when I covered Randall when he was with the Lakers, I really liked him a lot. And he's an extremely hard worker. He plays very hard, and there could be elements of physicality that he brings to this team that I at the very least, I don't think you get with Karl Anthony Towns. And it's funny with Randall, he and Cat are in a lot of ways, they're both very talented, but they are like polar opposite players, both in what they do. But, some of Randall's strengths, for example, like I feel like he could potentially find ways to create easier shots for Anthony Edwards better than Cat could. He's much more of an off the dribble threat. He's much more of like a drive and kick guy. Randall does often look for his own shot, and the ball can stop with him, but he might be able to do some stuff setting up Ant better. But with that in mind, how much utility do you feel like Ant has off the ball? Because Randall's, I think, is limited.
Yeah. I mean, Ant's actually a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And I think even Chris Finch said something during training camp to the media about how like that's an opportunity for them that they've kind of highlighted, that like, hey, Ant catch and shoot opportunities need to go up. Like he was 44% catch and shoot threes last year, like really good. He just didn't have that many opportunities because Cat's not the best passer off the dribble, and nobody else was really creating offense for this team. Like Mike Conley's not driving and dishing at age 37. And so it was Ant creating for himself or potentially in transition. And that's an area, you're right. I think if Julius Randle's creating off the dribble, Randle's a superior passer to Cat in almost every way. And so there is potential there. I think I just wonder how much of the offense when they're both on the floor together will actually run through Randle. And that to me is the biggest offensive question mark, is do they do that because Ant's more valuable off the ball than Randle? Or do they tell Julius Randle, hey, go stand in the corner while Ant's operating, and then maybe if Rudy's off the floor, if Naz Reid's in the front court with Randle, maybe they play Randle in the dunker spot a little bit, and he's done that a little bit in his career, and you put Naz on the perimeter, you play 4 out. So there's a lot of different options here, but you're right, Ant off the ball provides more value. It's just how much are you willing to live with the multiple jab steps and the ball stopping with Randle and Chris Finch. It hates mid-range jumpers as much as any analytically minded head coach does. And so how is that going to play? Now, Randle's obviously not the same. Like there's a good way and a bad way to get those shots off. And Randle's pretty effective when he gets into the paint, especially. But if the ball stopping becomes an issue, yeah, I mean, what's the answer there? I actually think the way he'll be most effective will be as basically one of Randle or Ant will always be on the floor. I think staggering their minutes, obviously they're both going to start, but staggering their minutes so that if Ant's off the floor, you tell Julius Randle, hey, it's your show. Like you go score, go be a 1A guy right now. And then when they're on the floor together, that's when you got to kind of, what's the right flow of the offense.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you Campus analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Steve, I've looked at it every single way I can. I don't see any regression from the Celtics. I don't see the championship hangover. I didn't see that in the preseason. I don't see, other than Kristaps Porzingis being out, but I don't see that being a problem. I have looked every way I can to try to find something to be overly concerned about. Knowing that we can't predict the future and who knows what's going to happen in this first game, that could change everything. But right now, I'm just looking at this team and I'm just like, they might be better than last year.
And I don't think anybody should be apologizing for that. I saw somebody predict 70 wins. I don't know that they need to chase 70 victories. There's going to be time where they take, they're going to mix and match here and have some days where, certain guys aren't in the lineup, and that's understandable. You mentioned Kristaps Porzingis. I covered the Mavericks from Bristol, Connecticut, pre and post game host years ago now. I think it was Porzingis. Might have been his next to final year, Luka's second year. And you just knew Porzingis was going down at some point in time. You take what you can get with him. And, today's NBA, today's sports, you want him ready to go second half of the season. And it's not going to be at the turn of the calendar, but you want him late in the second half of the season, maybe with, 20, 30 games left. And then you want him for the postseason. You want him for that run. And everyone seems to be content with that. He's always going to be, he's going to be banged up no matter what. He's just entering the season, not ready to go. He was going to, he's probably going to be down late November, December, into January, somewhere in there anyway. That's his history. But like you said, don't apologize. This is going to be a terrific team. And I keep kind of going back, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I see Michael Jordan on the reels, the Facebook reels, or whatever videos I'm watching day to day. There's a chip on their shoulder, and that's the way Jordan, there's self-motivation here with this team. You're going to look at certain dates on the calendar, and you're just going to say everyone's going to be up for that particular night. They're going to be ready to go and see if they blow out the opposing team in their building or even on the road. And I think right now as well, John, 6 out of the first 8 on the road, I think that could be a good thing because it's just basketball. You're on the road, and it's basketball.
Let me throw out what, even as I'm formulating this thought in my head, I'm like, man, this sounds like such a homer take. But is it possible that maybe just the way you framed the Porzingis thing, that it's kind of a good thing that we're coming into the season with the Porzingis injury? Like, instead of coming in fully healthy and that I know he's going down at some point, just a matter of when, it's starting without him. And then even if he comes back optimistically at the beginning of December, there's still a ramp-up period, December, January, then the All-Star break. I don't know. Maybe there's like they have no choice but to slowly ramp him up. Right. And they've already gone to all the preparation. So it's not January when they're saying, okay, damn, Luke Cornett, they have the game plan anyway from last season. They know how to win without him. We've seen it last season. But there's always like a scramble mode, right? Somebody hits the alarm, somebody pulls the fire alarm. It's like, okay, even though we've done this drill a million times, the fire alarm is still going off, the adrenaline still goes up. But when you come in with the plan, knowing today we are doing plan B, it's almost like, yeah, this is actually, let's just do that first. And then hopefully that gives us enough runway later on that he can be healthier for longer.
And I don't know the exact year to year for Porzingis, but when he comes back, more often than not, he's back and he's back for good. It's not going to be something lingering or anything like that. At this point in time, hey, he knows he's injury prone. He knows how to come back. So when he's back and ready to go. Yes, he's going to have restricted minutes, things like that, certain planned days off, nights off, things like that as well. But Porzingis knows himself at this point in time. He's gone through this, and he does go through rehabs the right way. And to your point as well, starting at the beginning of the season, Rick Carlisle years ago in the pregame with the media. And at that point, it was COVID and everybody was on Zoom. It wasn't a scrum in front of Rick Carlisle. And he finally just said, look, he's weeks away from even getting on the court. Please stop asking the questions. You sort of have a timetable right now. Understanding. Now, are Celtics media, are you going to do that? No, you're going to want updates as to where he's at. Probably, you mentioned over the weekend. They play Saturday. Okay, they play Saturday. What's the latest with Porzingis?
Mm-hmm.
We know that it's down the road at this point in time. We don't have to worry about that right now. He's still weeks away. Maybe even longer than that. But Carlisle sort of put an end to it in his own way, and it was a couple of weeks, and he finally said, "Hey guys, you can ask me about Porzingis tonight. We finally have an update." So there's a lot of track record here, and Porzingis understands himself that if they're all working together and they're all on the same page, he doesn't always have, he had a setback. No, in his rehabs in the past, he's been able to go from point A to point B to point C and end up playing regular season games and playing meaningful games.
So
that's glass half full. I know.
Listen, this is a glass half full kind of team. And that's the funny thing about this team. And looking ahead to the season, again, like and I'm glad you said you don't have to apologize. It reminds me of the, asking Ime Udoka a few years ago about a tough way, like a couple of things went wrong and they still pulled it out. And he looked at me and said, "Listen, man, I'm never going to apologize for winning a game." And so it is going to be kind of like that with the Celtics team this year. Like Brad Stevens, I'm not going to apologize for putting together an elite basketball team. I'm not going to apologize for putting together a team full of guys that are so good and such quality people that, yes, they did have a great offseason, a great summer. I asked Al Horford about it on Monday. It's going to be weird though, right? You're already putting in the rear view. And he laughed at me. Well, laughed about with the question I was asking. He's like, but we had a pretty good summer. It was a pretty good summer. And, now we're moving on, but it was short, but it was pretty good. So they did get a lot out of it. But we're not going to apologize for having the types of people, not just players, but people who understand, who buy what Joe Mazzulla is selling. And he's a maniac that we'll get to in a few minutes. But they buy it. They understand. They see it. And maybe it helps that Jason Tatum had the Team USA experience. And maybe it helps that Jaylen Brown didn't even get to have a Team USA experience. Maybe all of that is helpful in a way. But what the Celtics have done is put together a great team of basketball players, a great team of people, and they understand the assignment. And it's the best way I can put it. They understand the assignment, and a concept that we've been toying around with. I'll throw this out to you. This could have gone two ways winning a championship. Inflate the egos to a point where the locker room gets way too crowded because everybody's head is too big, or lift the weight of expectations off of shoulders, and they come in this year playing free and confident. And it definitely seems to be the latter, because I don't see any inflated egos around this team.
And it's exactly what you want. And everything you said there from beginning to end and in the middle, 100%. Nobody can look at this and find issue right now. My MO is always bring a baseball point in. And I've been reading Terry Francona's book with Dan Shaughnessy, The Red Sox Years, and 2004 World Series title team to spring training 2005. Terry Francona put on weight because he was at all those chicken dinners, and he didn't say no to anything from the time they won the World Series to when he got to spring training. And basically he was driving from Pennsylvania, as he's done years and years, to spring training, whether Arizona or Florida. He got in the car and realized, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
How did you, Brad Stevens, we know, is 24 hours a day. I always compare him to Theo Epstein to a certain degree. And how did you just characterize Joe Mazzulla? Maniac. He's a morning, noon, and you got the first one. That's the hardest.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to repeat. Or defend or win a second straight, however you want to put it. But you got that first one. The hunger's there. The egos are set aside, understanding we're stronger together than we are individually. So those egos do get checked. And as you said, hey, USA basketball experience. Made it, didn't play. USA basketball experience. Didn't think I was good enough to go. Okay, Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr. There's one of those. Again, to Jordan, these guys understand that. That's how they mimic one of the greatest of understanding. And, think about the teams of the 80s. Hey, where they were at this point before the season. Everyone knows we're going to be there. That's the way this Celtics team is right now. Eastern Conference Finals, you go from there.
Lamar Jackson sent a locked-in MVP message to the rest of the NFL.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
The Ravens coming off of a big Week 7 win. I mean big Week 7 win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 41-31, the final score, although I think we can all admit that the score wasn't actually as close as the game was, right? I think the Ravens pretty much had control outside of that 10-0 deficit they were in. They came back in that game, and they ended up dominating Tampa Bay, but unfortunately some lackluster defensive play at the end of the game ended up making that final score a lot closer than the game was. So we're going to be talking about a big recap of the Ravens and Bucs game, obviously. I mean, that's the big storyline, right? But in the first part of the show, I want to talk about Lamar's locked-in MVP message, both about what he had to say after the game and also just his game in general, because that in itself was a loud message that he sent. Then in the second part of the show, we'll get into Ed Reed and Bill Belichick. If you watched the Manning cast of the game last night, you heard a couple of comments from both Ed Reed and Bill Belichick about this Ravens team and them calling out the Ravens, particularly on the defensive side of the ball and some of the mistakes that they were making there. So a jam-packed episode, but a big win for Baltimore. They moved to 5-2 on the season. And as I said, 41-31 for the Ravens over Tampa Bay. Remember, the Ravens went down to Tampa a couple of years ago, came out with a win. That was when Lamar Jackson had that pay me sign that he ended up signing. That was, before Lamar was signed long-term. But Lamar Jackson with a long-term deal comes down to Tampa Bay again and absolutely does his thing. I've been so impressed with Lamar all year, all season. And what he did on Monday night was just another feat in an already incredible year for him just through the first third plus of the season. I mean, look at Lamar here, 17 completions, 281 yards passing, and we got a Jackson five passing touchdowns. I mean, it's incredible. And the stat that I didn't put on the graphic here is the incompletions. I put completions, but you may be wondering, Kevin, what are you talking about with incompletions? Lamar had 5 passing touchdowns. He had 5 incompletions. That is just insane. That's unreal. Lamar is absolutely locked in. He's performing well. We know that he is a prime time demon. He loves the prime time. He loves going out there under the bright lights and doing his thing. And he's so good that, again, he doesn't have to throw for 350 passing yards a game, right? He does this so efficiently. 17 passes, 5 touchdowns, or 70 completions, 5 touchdowns. That's almost a touchdown for every 3 pass attempts, just over every 3 pass attempts. Lamar Jackson threw a touchdown, essentially 3 point, whatever decimal point that number is. That's incredible efficiency. And OptaStats put out a stat saying there have been 3 games in NFL history where a QB threw 5+ touchdown passes on fewer than 25 pass attempts while also rushing for 50+ yards. All 3 of them were by Lamar Jackson. You got 11-25 2019, 12-12 2019, and last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was finding his guys. He was dotting guys up, getting guys involved. His receivers did great work too. Shout out to Rashad Bateman, and we'll get his stats up here. 4 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. He and Lamar connected on a couple of big plays, couple of 40+ plays for those 2 guys. I mean, they're establishing a connection. We know Rashad and Zay are 2 of Lamar's top targets this season, and as they've had to be, right? Guys have had to step up left and right, but there were a lot of questions about Rashad. And honestly, for me, I can't express how happy I am for Rashad Bateman. He's faced so much flack, so much controversy, and he stepped up big time this season. where I said the past 2 games last week, I'll now loop this game in. The past 3 weeks for Rashad Bateman, I think have been the best 3 games of his career, the best stretch of his career, I'll say, because of everything that he has done. Everything, deep ball, short, intermediate stuff, working back to Lamar, being a security blanket, being a trusted target of Lamar. That's all stuff that in this offense, it's not just the Mark Andrews show anymore. Everybody has to step up, and that is exactly what we are seeing. Now, Lamar Jackson after the game, had a couple of quotes, but the one that stuck out to me the most was this one. Lamar Jackson saying, "I'm chasing something right now. All these games mean something." And so I know that for a lot of people, a lot of Ravens fans who have watched this team, it's been about, well, we know this Ravens team is a good regular season team, right? We know that under John Harbaugh in that era, he's gotten them prepared for the playoffs in the regular season, but recently it's been about the playoff success. But Lamar is so locked in on his goal, and we all know what that goal is. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He's not going to be satisfied, not going to be happy or content until he wins a Super Bowl. And so he is in locked in mode, where some guys can get on cruise control a little bit, right? And cruise control, we'll talk about the defense in the second part of the show for the Ravens, because that was a prime display as cruise control. But Lamar, he wants to establish good habits. He wants to be able to work things out so that when the playoffs come around, he doesn't have to say, oh, wait, maybe we should have established more of this in the regular season. Foot on the gas. Foot on the gas. Exactly what he wants, exactly what the Ravens want to do. John Harbaugh goes for it, up 17, 4th and goal in the third quarter. Up 17 points. You could say, all right, 17-20. And actually, it ended up kind of mattering a little bit in the final score grand scheme of things. If they kicked that field goal, would have been a 1-possession game, and Tampa would probably be driving down that field trying to tie or win the game, depending on what ended up happening for the rest of it. So actually kind of crazy enough, they needed that 4th and goal touchdown. But regardless, foot on the gas, Lamar is going 100 miles an hour right now in everything. He wants to get to his goal. And it's games like this that make it, just so incredible to see. Look, he's put an MVP statement out. He is well on his way to winning his 3rd MVP, MV3. And we still have a long way to go, right? It's not set in stone whatsoever, right? Not at all. He still has a long way to go. So there's the rest of the NFL. But how many more of these MVP matchups do we have to go through here? For Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's gotten a lot of respect this season. And obviously, that's not from everybody. He has still encountered plenty of disrespect as well. But it's like, okay, well, even like in previous years, remember Justin Herbert in 2019? He had Lamar matched up. Well, Herbert was in the MVP conversation and Lamar wasn't. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, Herbert's the front runner. Lamar's kind of in there a little bit. And then Lamar decimates the Chargers. Herbert's out. Lamar's in. Russell Wilson, Seattle, 2019. Russ was the MVP front runner with Lamar. And Russ is out after that game because Lamar beat Seattle. I mean, he got a couple games last year. That Lions team was great. Obviously, the San Francisco game was what people will talk about with that, where it was Brock Purdy versus Lamar Jackson for MVP. Lamar waxes San Francisco. You got Josh Allen in week 4 this year, right? Buffalo. Oh, Josh Allen's a front runner for MVP. Lamar waxes the Bills. You could even go back to last week. Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. A lot of MVP conversation for Jaden Daniels. Oh, if Jaden Daniels wins this game, he's the MVP front runner. Lamar beats Washington. And now it was another MVP battle between Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. And guess what happens? Lamar Jackson waxes the Buccaneers. So this man is locked in. This man wants a Super Bowl win so badly. As we've talked about over and over and over again on this show, it's not just for him, right? He wants it for his teammates. He wants it for the city. He wants it for his coaches. He wants it for everybody. And that's what makes it so cool. That's what makes it so cool. But this was a dialed in, locked in Lamar Jackson, dotting up his throws, making good decisions, juking guys out. And all of that combined led to a dominant offensive performance.
If you're a big NFL fan, and let's be honest, who isn't? And you're looking for a big return, look no further than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can take aim at the pair of Monday night football games. Yes, I said the pair. The early kickoff tonight features the Ravens traveling to face the Bucs. FanDuel likes the Ravens on the road by 3.5. 45 minutes later, the late game is the Cardinals hosting the Chargers. FanDuel again likes the road team, the Chargers, favored by 1.5. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app or on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Chargers let one slip away on Monday Night Football against the Cardinals.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Daniel, the Chargers drop a very, very frustrating game on Monday Night Football to the Arizona Cardinals, where the Chargers offense could not score touchdowns. They scored all their points off of field goals. On defense, they played pretty well, but it was a couple of big plays that was the difference between winning and losing on the defensive side. A lot of problems, a lot of things to fix, a lot of issues to talk about in this really frustrating football game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they just weren't good enough, and they just lost to a bad team. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, when I look at this game, I think to me, it falls more on the offense than it does the defense, while both groups really struggled in certain aspects. But to me, it starts with the offense, and this has been a continual struggle all year long. When you're not able to throw the ball effectively and you're not throwing for big yardage and you're winning games, maybe that masks a little bit how much you might need it, especially in a game like this when you're trying to come from behind and put the game away. You just didn't have it. And I thought that Justin Herbert was Herculean in this one, but at the end of this, the Chargers settled for 5 field goals and a 15-17 loss, right? They've now gone 15 straight drives without a touchdown and haven't scored a second half touchdown since week 1. Putting up 15 points against the 5th worst defense in the NFL is just unacceptable. Dumb penalties at terrible times. 1 touchdown wins you this game. And you have Justin Herbert playing quarterback, and you can't get it. And that's just not good enough, David. No running game, not enough firepower, not enough from this Chargers offense.
Not enough, I think, is really the word that it culminates this performance tonight. I mean, and the thing that sucks is that Justin Herbert was fantastic. Like, he did absolutely everything he could to keep the Chargers in this game. But the Chargers had no running game. They had bad penalties and bad situations that really wrecked, their momentum. And they had multiple turnovers in this football game that they could not cash in on, that they could not really take advantage of. The momentum of those type of plays, it's great that they happen, but if you don't finish them, they don't mean anything. So it was just a myriad of problems in this game. It just felt, from the very beginning that it was going to be a dogfight, that it was going to be an ugly game, and it was an ugly game. And unfortunately, the Chargers did not put themselves in a position to come out of that ugly game on top.
And the thing is the Chargers want to be the time of possession team, and they dominated the time of possession in this game. But the problem is when you can't actually finish those drives, you're just giving Justin Herbert less chances to put points on the board, because they had almost 10 minutes more time of possession than the Cardinals had in this game, but they settled for 15 points on 5 Cameron Dicker field goals and also had a turnover inside of the 5-yard line, basically, from Jalen Reagor, which we'll talk about. But you can't be the team that wants to possess the ball but then can't finish once you get there and be efficient with those possessions, because
then it means nothing.
Where Justin Herbert is absolutely awesome. Like, it's crazy. I feel like I'm in crazy town when I have people comment to me, Justin Herbert's not the same. Justin Herbert isn't good anymore. It's like, are we watching the same game? Like, truly, he was 27 of 39 for 349 yards. He averaged almost 9 yards per attempt, 8.9 yards per attempt he averaged in this game. Every time he threw the ball, he was getting 9 yards, and his leading receiver in this game was Will Dissly. Like, he elevated the group around him. He played insane. I mean, out of those 12 incompletions, you have a couple of straight up drops. You have a couple balls that probably should have got caught in tight windows, where if you have elite playmakers, they make those plays, even if it looks like a tough play. Sometimes you need guys to come up with that tough play. And there were just other times where guys were just absolutely stuck to in coverage, and guys are batting balls away from receivers who just aren't open. Like, Justin Herbert was phenomenal in this game. And when you have a guy like this that's playing at this level and is throwing for 350 yards and putting your team completely on his back, you have to be able to score more than 15 points. And for Greg Roman, a guy that, really has always had the best running attacks in the league, like, he's always been good. It's always top 10. This is like the worst he's ever looked as far as his team running the football. You're not giving Justin Herbert the running game you said you were going to give him. He's balling out anyways, but now it feels like we've gone on a time machine where Justin Herbert's going crazy and the Chargers still aren't winning games.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that kind of rings true, at least from, what we saw in the beginning of the year, was that the defense was playing out of their mind. But the offense and the balance that, Greg Roman and all the rest of the coaching staff was, trying to, really talk up and say, hey, what would it look like if Justin Herbert had a running game? Well, we've only seen it a couple of times this year. And yeah, it looks good when they do, and it's able to, cover up some of the deficiencies of the offense. But the red zone offense is a really big problem. I mean, it is a massive issue that the Chargers have yet to correct. And when you can't cap off these great drives, these Herculean efforts from Justin Herbert, the performance doesn't even look the same. But this is, what he was able to do. 8 for 81 for Will Dissly, 4 catches for Palmer, 5 catches for Ladd McConkey, 3 catches for Braden Fehoko. He was spreading the ball around. Simi Fehoko. I said Braden Fehoko. I'm so sorry. Simi Fehoko was out there balling out, making the most of his opportunities. But my point was, Justin Herbert was using everything at his disposal to try to will the Chargers to score points, to score touchdowns. But when it was, coming down to those points where they had to go out there and score a touchdown, they didn't have the firepower to be able to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah. A lot of really good drives, a lot of really good moments for this offense in this game. It just doesn't feel like it at all when you only come away with 15 points in a game where, again, 1 touchdown wins it for you. But it really was, like I said in the little clip we put out after the game, like, we should have known that this is the way this game was going, because on the first drive, Justin Herbert throws a bomb to Jalen Reagor, a 41-yard pass. And as he's potentially going into the end zone, he gets stripped inside the 5-yard line, fumbles it for a touchback for the Cardinals, in a play where you could have ended the touchdown drought right there, right? That was the closest they got to a touchdown the entire game. That was it. I mean, he had a chance for a touchdown there. They never really got close again. And then at the end of the game, you have the biggest third down of the game, right? An opportunity to get a first down, make Arizona use all their timeouts, a game to potentially even win the game with your offense on the field and get a chip shot field goal if you can get a first down. The Cardinals show blitz. Justin Herbert and Simi Fehoko are either not on the same page at all or completely thinking two different things, or Simi Fehoko cut his double move short that he was trying to run. But you don't even need a double move in that. If you're like, you have to have a better option on the third down. And the biggest point of this game, there has to be a better option for me than just throw it up to Simi Fehoko and float one up there and hope he can make a play. That's just not good enough. I'd rather have, Ladd McConkey on a one-on-one trying to do something different than that, a more high percentage play. It can't be an all or nothing play like that and then have it look that bad. But this was just a game of missed opportunities. T.R. Tart intercepts Kyler Murray, fumbles it, and gives it right back instead of the Chargers having a great possession deep inside Cardinals territory. It ends up first down, Cardinals going the other way. And then the only Cardinals touchdown drive in the first half, James Conner stripped of the ball, and his own teammate recovers it for another first down. Like, so many brutal moments in this game, David, where it's no surprise. Like, it felt like if you make these mistakes, you lose that game.
Absolutely, 100%. The Jalen Reagor fumble was a backbreaker because, I mean, you wanted all season long to be able to see Justin Herbert go out there and throw it down the field and go make a big play. And he's wide open. There's no one anywhere around him. All he has to do is catch the ball, secure the ball, go forward or get out of bounds, and you're setting yourself up to score a touchdown if you don't get in the end zone yourself. And then, the fumbles that you created that you're not able to capitalize on, those are backbreaking plays. They kill the momentum when you can't capitalize on creating those turnovers. It is simply the difference between winning and losing. And we see it in all of the major losses, all of these chances to get back in the game, and they can't do it.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you canvas analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Bucs take their biggest loss of the season and
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast.
I was setting this show up to be like all the other post-game shows. Biggest moment, biggest takeaways, whether it was game balls or, something else at the end, depending on how the game went. That's how this show was going to go. Throughout the game, I knew we weren't giving away game balls. The Buccaneers ended up getting absolutely shellacked. They lose 41-31. The score was a lot closer than the game was. And I'm sitting there working on my biggest moment, talking about when Mike Evans went down with injury. But the biggest moment was when Chris Godwin went down with an injury. And so I scrapped my entire script. I had bullet points, I had stats, I had everything ready to roll. And then Chris Godwin, with under a minute left, goes down, gets carted off in an air cast. Todd Bowles, after the game, said that it looks like a dislocated ankle. That's not officially official yet, but that means Chris Godwin is out for the rest of the season. That is the biggest moment, not just in this game, but that is the biggest moment for this Buccaneers season. Chris Godwin was having a career year, leading the league in receiving. Led the league in receptions, was leading the league in yards, was leading the league in yards after catch, was leading the league in touchdown reception. Well, I guess he fell one behind Mike Evans when Evans scored that opening touchdown, had one taken away from him on a bad holding call. But this changes everything. This changes absolutely everything for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We talked about it last week. I talked about it on the live preview show on Monday, that if the Bucs were going to lose this game, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It's more important to beat Atlanta. How are the Bucs going to beat Atlanta without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? Like, I'm at a loss for words because I am so unbelievably just sick to my stomach over what happened to Chris Godwin. Chris is one of the best, not just players in the NFL, but he is one of the best people. And watching the way he was playing this year, it should have brought a smile to everybody's face. I don't care what team you're a fan of. Ross Jackson, the host of Locked On Saints, he and I talk all the time about how much he likes Chris Godwin. So the way Godwin's season was going in a contract year, to end like that is gut-wrenching. And what does that do to Baker Mayfield? I was just on the Blitz with Evan on 10 Tampa Bay on Sunday talking about how Baker Mayfield is an MVP candidate. And he's an MVP candidate because of how well Mike Evans is playing and how unbelievable Chris Godwin has been. He's not going to be an MVP of the... I mean, this game probably took him out of the running, but there was still a lot of time left. Lamar Jackson was unreal. 5 touchdowns. He had as many touchdown passes as he did incomplete passes. But if this offense doesn't have Chris Godwin, This offense is a shell of itself. We saw it become a shell of itself when Mike Evans went down. That's when Baker started forcing bad passes. That's when he threw interceptions. Mike Evans changes everything for this offense. Now, Chris Godwin is out. I don't know what they're going to do, guys. I really don't know what they're going to do. And I hope when I can come back on tomorrow's episode with a clear head, I can give you some answers. But right now, in the emotion of coming out of that game, and honestly, I'm sitting there watching it, and I know Bucs fans are upset, and I was frustrated at some points, but I didn't care that they were going to lose. I really, truly didn't. And it was for all the reasons that I told you guys all week. It's for all the reasons that I said on Inside the 813 with Rock Riley last week. I had it written down over here on one of my several pads of papers with Mike Evans on the field. Baker Mayfield, 38 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions. Without Mike Evans on the field, 6 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. I think that number is now 8 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions. Maybe it's 7 interceptions. I can't remember now. I had it all written down. That's how impactful Mike Evans is to the offense. But Chris Godwin was the engine that drove this car. He was the anchor. He was the guy that no matter what, no matter the down and distance, no matter where they were on the field, you looked for 14 because he was going to make a play. It was just a couple weeks ago that the Bucs had a 3rd and 20 plus, and Chris Godwin gets a first down on a screen pass. The leadership, the personality, everything about him in the locker room and on the field, the rest of the offense fed off of that. This was probably the most catastrophic injury that the Buccaneers could have faced this season. You can talk about Baker Mayfield, and I completely understand that. But in terms of the Buccaneers' ability to compete, their ability to win the division, their ability to make a playoff run, losing Chris Godwin crushes it. It absolutely crushes it because this offense is not the same without him. That's why he was so important. That's why I was going to be spending 2 months after the season pounding the table and finding ways to give Chris Godwin the money that he was earning. That could be the last game we ever see Chris Godwin wearing pewter and red. I hope it's not. And I know Jason Light hopes that it's not. And he and John Spytek are going to work round the clock to try to figure out how to keep him there. Baker wants him there. We know Liam Cohen wants him there. Everybody wants him there. But the NFL is a business. And at the end of the day, Chris Godwin could look to move on. Mike Evans chose not to. That doesn't mean that Godwin will. That injury ripped the hearts out of Buccaneers fans that were already upset about the way their team played in primetime yet again against the Baltimore Ravens yet again. And you want to talk about pouring salt in the wounds? That was a dump truck of salt that just got poured all over Raymond James Stadium. Going to jump into the live chat real quick before we hit the break. I just saw it. Where'd you go? Somebody said something to the effect of Jalen. Oh, here it is. Bo LaFrenchie says Jalen better step up. Jalen McMillan had a good game. And that was one of the things that I was actually going to talk about. After his one target turned into a deflected pass that was intercepted last week, Jalen McMillan had a clutch 4th down pickup. He had a clutch 3rd down pickup. McMillan overall played really well. He's about to become a much bigger part of the offense. I talked, for those of you that were watching during draft season, I was talking about The Buccaneers need to draft a receiver, and they need to draft a guy that could be a potential Chris Godwin replacement if they move on. Now, Jalen McMillan, I'm not saying that he's Chris Godwin because he's not. But, it's nice to see him trending in the right direction because he's about to become a focal point of this offense, especially if that hamstring injury that Mike Evans suffered keeps him out against Atlanta, and I think it will. If you go into a game against Atlanta without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, ooh, buddy, you better really, really hope that they can figure out something.
If you're a big NFL fan, and let's be honest, who isn't? And you're looking for a big return, look no further than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can take aim at the pair of Monday night football games. Yes, I said the pair. The early kickoff tonight features the Ravens traveling to face the Bucs. FanDuel likes the Ravens on the road by 3.5. 45 minutes later, the late game is the Cardinals hosting the Chargers. FanDuel again likes the road team, the Chargers, favored by 1.5. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app or on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's confirmed Brandon Aiyuk is done for the 2024 season.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast.
All right, Croc, it's official. This from Ian Rappaport. And we haven't had a chance as of this recording to hear Kyle Shanahan, what he says about it. But I assume it'll be more of the same and the hopefulness that Brandon Aiyuk will be back to start the 2025 season. But it's going to be a long road back. According to Ian Rappaport, Brandon Aiyuk does in fact have a torn ACL and a torn MCL per sources. And there may be other damage that we're probably going to have to wait and find out about once they get in and do the surgery, which means it's probably going to be a complete reconstruction of that knee, Croc, and potentially a meniscus involved as well in a really gruesome injury to Brandon Aiyuk's right knee, done for the season. And hopefully, in the best case scenario, Croc, Brandon Aiyuk will be 100% ready to go to start the 2025 season, but that's not a guarantee. This is a really tough injury, and this is an injury where even if he does come back by week 1 in 2025, there might be more hurdles in him becoming actually 100% the Brandon Aiyuk that we already knew post-injury, even starting next season.
Yeah, you talk about hurdles, and I think the biggest hurdle is always the mental hurdle. All right, a lot of these guys, you get the surgery, they repair your ACL, MCL, and whatever else is going on. But trusting it at 100%. You go back a few years ago, and I remember Jimmy Garoppolo tearing his ACL against the Kansas City Chiefs, same team. All right, but when he came back, and we saw him in that first preseason game against the Denver Broncos, he was like he would throw the ball, and he kind of got pushed, and he's like trying to keep his leg out of harm's way, and he doesn't want that leg to get hit. He's trying to protect it, and that's when you could tell, like, this guy, he's still thinking about whatever's going on. And he said it took him a while throughout that season to kind of trust that knee again. So for Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, just the injury in itself, that's a really tough one, especially with the way that it happened, making the play. Dropped the bad ball earlier, comes back, makes a great catch while getting hit, but they take his knee out. I just think it's really unfortunate, especially for the way that the season has kind of started for him. Had one big splash game. I'm assuming he would want a better start, especially after getting paid the amount of money that he got. And for it to end short, 7 games into the season, I think that's really unfortunate for Brandon Aiyuk.
I immediately go to the entire saga we went through this offseason with Brandon Aiyuk. And this is exactly why Brandon Aiyuk was not going to play a game for the 49ers and was holding out to get the contract, because this exact thing could happen. Can you imagine if Brandon Aiyuk decided to go play on his 5th-year option and then this sort of an injury happens during the season before he secures a long-term contract? So that's why you hold out. That's why any player holds out and doesn't want to go play, because this could happen any given game in the NFL.
And this is not an injury that happened because of maybe a lack of offseason, right? Maybe if it's hamstring and you continue to get these hamstring pulls and it derails your season, or you can still, oh, this guy's just not in shape and he's getting hurt because of it, all these soft tissue injuries, that's understandable. This was just a direct shot to his leg, to his knee, and you saw the knee buckle in. So it doesn't even have anything to do with him missing offseason. But the fact that you brought that up, I think that is an amazing point. We saw it happen with Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys. They're like, oh, you're going to have to play on the franchise tag. A few games into the season, his whole ankle snapped and had like a compound fracture and is pointing an entirely different way. When people hold out to get more money, a lot of it, and again, I get it as fans, he's selfish, he's this, he's that. These guys' livelihoods are on the line every time they step out on that field. So if you have any type of ability to get some guarantees because of some things that may happen to you while playing this game of football, you got to do whatever you can to make sure you secure that. And I talked about some of my buddies that I coach high school football with. Desmond Bishop, 9-year NFL pro. Bill Hawkins, 6-7-year NFL pro. These are guys that were retired from the game of football before their 30s. Like, they're done, right? So, yeah, did great, made some money, etc. And Aiyuk, he was making more money than those guys made in their careers. But just the fact that you don't know how long this game of football is going to be good to you. You don't know how long it's going to last, and you don't know how long you can be your best. So these are certain things like what that happen like this that you kind of want to protect yourself from and the business of yourself to make sure that in the event that something like this does happen, you are taken care of. So I'm glad he went about it the way he did and didn't go out there and play on that 5th-year option, because if he did, he'd be losing out on a lot of money. And again, there's some people that may say, well, now he can't help the 49ers. Well, he got hurt trying to help the 49ers.
You could definitely point to maybe his play this year not being what 49ers fans and maybe the 49ers would have hoped. He hasn't put up big numbers so far this season. And you may point to that as something that is, a correlation with him holding out, not having all of the spring and the summer practicing and building a rapport with his quarterback and being in the office and practicing. And so having a slow start to the season, you could point to that. But obviously the injury, like you said, Croc, that has zero to do with him holding out. And that is just the ligaments in the leg not being able to hold up to getting crushed by another large man that is that did damage to that. So unfortunate for Brandon Aiyuk. His season is done. He'll still have ample opportunity to earn that contract, a 4-year, $120 million extension. And remember, that was kind of tied into the $14 million 5th-year option that he already had. The Niners knocked that cap number all the way down to $5 million in 2024. So not only does he still have the $120 million to go in his contract, but he has a lot of the 5th-year option. Like the 2024 contract he already had has also partially been pushed into the future as well. So there's still 129 million of his 134 total in salary that is still on the books to come in 2025 through 2030, and 29 and 2030 are void years. So this contract the extension was 2025 through 2028 were the 4 years that he's actually under contract to play for the 49ers. But they moved some money around with the void years and pushed some of this money from 2024 into future years as well. So, even more than the $120 million is still on the books for the 49ers going forward for Brandon Aiyuk. And the cap numbers remain low next year as well, and really start to balloon as far as base salary in 2027 and 2028. And so if a fan's out there thinking, okay, well, what if Brandon Aiyuk is broken and he never is the player that that the 49ers hope they would be. Really, the first opportunity the 49ers would have to get out from under this contract, if they wanted to do that in sort of a trade or a cut situation, would probably be post June 1st in 2026. So I know I was going to get asked that question, so I just wanted to throw that out there. But right now is not the time to think about that. Right now is the time to wish Brandon Aiyuk well. Hope he does recover fully, and he's the same guy he always was, showing up in week 1 of 2025, and we'll find out more from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, and we'll know more post-surgery about what exactly the damage is inside his knee, if it's more than just ACL and MCL, which is already pretty extensive. If there's meniscus involved as well in this injury, and what the exact time frame and recovery is expected to be for Brandon Aiyuk, but certainly at the earliest to start the 2025